Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 363. First, second, and third priority. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with the team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Well, welcome back to the show. I'm trying a different approach today with the way that I'm recording it, so hopefully that'll help the audio get a little bit better, because that's my goal. But let's get right into it. It's been a couple of weeks, and last week we had all the March break camp, and things just got really, really busy. So glad to be back. There's a lot to unpack with the March break camp. But first, let's talk about this weekend's games. We had 3 games. We had 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. Our best game by far had to be our 2010-11 game, which at this point is more like a 2011 game with some 2010 players. We're in that 2010 league. So our 2011 players are playing in a Sunday and a Saturday league. The Sunday league is in a different district than our district because I wanted our 2012s to get experience to the 9v9 game, and they didn't offer that in our district. So because of that, I decided to combine them with the 2011s, and now the 2012s are playing in the 2011 league, playing 9v9, and then our 2011s are getting that 9v9 experience, which they also had in the outdoor season, and they can help the 2012s. And then on top of that, they're playing a year up to challenge them. And I got to say, we're actually performing a lot better in the 6v6 on Saturday nights. And I think that's simply because our 2012 to the 2011, there's just a big gap there. So our 2012s are making a lot of mistakes playing against the 2011s. And what I've noticed is the difference is really more physical than it is anything else. So that 2012 to 2011 age group for boys is really where there's a big growth spurt. So our 2012s are a lot smaller in the games and they're a lot slower. But when we're playing in our Saturdays for 2012-13, all our 2012s are doing really well. So I know our players are performing really well on their, like, at their age group. What's really incredible is this 2011 team that are playing on Saturday nights. They're doing really well with the 2010s. Now, we're not winning every game, and that's not really important. And really what I've figured out is that winning doesn't tell you anything. Not in youth. It just doesn't. And I'll tell you why. First of all, you have no idea who the other team you're playing against are. You don't know how many players are playing up. You don't know how many players are away because they're sick, how many are away because they've gone on vacation. You just don't know the team you're playing against. So you could be playing the first-ranked team. They could be missing 4 of their best players, and you win, so it just doesn't matter. And it's the same thing with us. There are certain games where some of the more advanced players are away. Some of the players that are struggling are away sometimes, and you just get a mix of players. So this is going to get completely crazy during the summer because there are parents and players that are away for a full month. So I've just kind of figured out that if you're going 10-0, that is just not good for development. It's not good that you're winning every game because it means that even at your worst, you're not being challenged enough. So for us, and we have our last game with this 2010-2011 team, we're in the middle of the pack. So we're not first, we're not last, we're in that middle spot. So I personally think that this season has been very successful from a 2010 to 2011 point of view. Now, that 2011, 2012 team, they've really struggled. And that makes sense to me because we only have one defender with our 2011s. So we have two 2012s playing defense at all times because we're playing a 3-4-1. So we're struggling in the back. We're losing the ball, and that's just how you get scored on it. It's the same thing with our 2013-12 team, right? A lot of our 2013s are playing in the back as well. So these mistakes are constantly happening in the back, but I'm okay with it. I don't mind that, you know? So for me, I think we've done pretty well this year. Going into outdoor, and I'll do a full episode about that, things are going to be a little different. We're, for the first time, going to have a tier 1, tier 2 team for 2013s and 14s. And that's really going to change our way of playing. We're going to be making less mistakes at the tier 1 with some of our elite level players. And our tier 2, they're really just going out to develop, to get better, to try and push them eventually into that tier 1. Because now we're playing 7v7. In a couple of years, they'll be playing 9v9. And then in a couple of years after that, they're going to be playing 11v11. So a lot of these 2013s will be playing tier 1 at a certain point. The question is, how fast can we get them there so that by the time we get into 9v9, most of those tier 2 players, they're already on the tier 1 team, and our newer players then take over. And that's kind of how I see the academy moving forward from that point of view. Just tier 2 players really developing, really emphasis on 1-touch, 2-touch move, and just making sure they're comfortable on the ball. They're passing, they're 1v1s. Everything is just at a high level. And some of these kids are also developing physically at a slower pace. And that's going to have an effect on how they play. There is one of our players who I've had with me since, I want to say he was 7. He's just really small. Like, he's just a tiny kid. But even now, so he's a 2013. He's playing up 2012 because we're in a 2012-13 league. So most of the team are 2012s. He's destroying players 1v1. And when he hits that growth spurt, his 1v1 confidence, when he is now the same height that the other players are, and he is mature enough physically to battle in those tier 1, which he's going to be playing tier 1 anyway, but he's just going to be one of our best players. So it's that consistent 1v1 that we work on in training, and eventually players get it. You know, it may take 4 years for some of them to get to that elite level, but if you're just repeating it and they're getting that muscle memory, and every single session they're just battling, it's going to click. And I've seen that with so many players that I just thought would never get it, but we kept going, we kept trying, we kept doing the 1v1s every session for 15, 20, sometimes 45, sometimes the full hour. And eventually they just got it. And it's just, it's the only way to develop players, in my opinion. You know, you can say, I mean, I've seen it all when it comes to player development. There is nothing that I have seen that gets the best out of every single player like this one-on-one environment. It just, I haven't. But yeah, so that was this weekend. We struggled with our 2013s and the early game on Saturday and our 2011, 2012s. But again, that's just what's going to happen this season in outdoor. When I look back at the games, I didn't think they were that bad. It was just mistakes. We were doing what our 2010-11 did on Saturday. We were doing the same things. Our passes just weren't as good. Our first touch just wasn't as good. And our decision making just wasn't as good. And it's simple mistakes like that. When you mess those up, that's it. you get 3 to 4 goals against you. So yeah, that was the weekend. The week before, we had the March break camp. I thought it went really well. My favorite day and my favorite activity, which I want to talk about, was the last day. And I left it for the last day because I knew it would be my favorite, and I wanted the kids to kind of go home with a good, fun activity that they could take into every part of their life. And that last thing that we did was during lunchtime. During lunchtime is the time that I like to talk about nutrition. I do presentations, but the last day was really an activity. Now, we spoke about hydration, and for me, that's something that I've recently discovered, the power of water. And you're probably thinking, Sega, come on, it's water. Of course, it's important. Yes. But here's what I discovered. You can take it, you can do your own research, whatever you want. But here's what I've found through my research. Again, you don't have to believe me. You do your own research. But this is what I found. So there are different types of water, right? There is tap water. There is distilled water. There is mineral water. Essentially, those are the ones that we were really looking at. And what I wanted the players to understand and get out of it was that the water that you put in your body is different. Every water is different, and it has a different effect on your body. And the way that I did that was this. I bought 6 different types of mineral water. On the back of the bottle of each mineral water is a list of all the minerals that it has. I printed out a checklist of all the minerals that were available within all of the water bottles. I put them on a table after I drank them all throughout the week, which is, I think, why I went on Friday, because I needed time to finish all the water bottles. And each group would take a water bottle and they would check mark to see which minerals were in that water. And when it was over, we sat and we started talking. And the question I asked was, which water is the best? And then I got a bunch of different answers. Oh, Fiji water was the best. Evian was all these different waters, and everyone kind of had their own idea. And then I said, okay, well, what makes the best water? Why is one water better than the other one? And then one person said, well, because it has more minerals, right? Another player said, well, because it has more calcium, for example. And then I said, okay, is calcium important? Do we need that? Do we need potassium in our body? Do we need fluoride? Is that something we want to put in our body? Right. And I started asking these questions to make the players think, what is the stuff that we're putting in our body? Do we want to put it in our body? And that was really a great conversation. And that's really all I wanted, right? As someone who's doing the nutrition stuff during lunch, it's not my job to tell players what to eat. I don't look at it that way. I look at it from the point of view of, I'm going to teach them about nutrition so that when they go home, they can start the conversation with their parents, and it is up to the parent to ultimately take over. I can share my nutrition ideas, but in my opinion, and I think everyone can relate, everyone's got their own opinion about nutrition. So what I think doesn't matter if the parents completely disagree with it, right? So at this point, the most important thing is to get the players to engage with the parents about these types of conversations, right? Water, okay, fats, carbs, protein. Are these things important? When do we need to eat them? And then let the parents take over. Now, I do provide a sample of what I think would be a great diet for a child. I'm not, and again, I say that not knowing anything about the child. This is a rounded diet that's recommended. So I give that to the parents and I say, you know, with this, you can do what you want. Okay. You don't have to follow it at all. I don't know the players' dietary restrictions. I don't know yours, but this is a great way, again, for now the parent and the child to start a conversation, right? Oh, Coach Segev gave me this. Okay. What do you think about this meal? Is this something you want to try? Well, Coach Segev started talking to us about carbs today. What are carbs, right? Those are these conversations that they're going to get the players, the parents involved. Because a lot of the time, what I hear is my child just wants to eat French fries, pizza, hamburgers, all these things that are really bad for them. And the parent says, I don't know how to get them into eating healthy. And this is a way to do that, right? Understanding what's going in your body, understanding if it's good or bad, doing some research, those types of things. And my favorite day was that Friday. Now, what I learned about water is that tap water, water likes to bond with nutrients, minerals. And because tap water doesn't have minerals, it will, once you drink it, it can actually take some minerals from your body. I don't know if this is true. This is the research that I've done, right? So these are things that we can talk about. Again, I'm not there to change the child's perspective. That's not my job. It's not my job to tell the child what to eat. They're not my kid. I can't do that, right? But what I can do is help them start the conversation. Well, Segev said this about tap water. Is it true? Then the parent, they'll say whatever they want to the child and they'll take it from there. We had 7 different types of mineral water, and I got them to go home with the checklist so that their parents could see. What do you think about this? What do you think? Which one do you think we should drink? Do you think we should drink the one with all the minerals? Do you think we should drink the tap water? All this and all that. The other thing we can talk about too is the impact on environment, right? It leads to all these great conversations that we can have with our players. Well, if you're drinking mineral water, it's out of bottles, right? You don't have a spring outside. Is that good? Is that good for the environment? Is that something we should be doing, right? Is it worth it? So all these different conversations were actually some of my favorite parts during March break. Now, listen, we have kids that are super young. We have kids that are a little older. So they're not listening the whole time. It's an hour for lunch, right? They're eating, I'm talking. Sometimes I show shows and different YouTube shorts and things like that. But I don't expect them to listen to everything. I spoke to one of the parents, and now what's really great is that child is actually going to come up with a grocery list and they're going to go grocery shopping together, right? That's something that happened because of the camp. And that's something that I'm proud of, right? Now, from the skills point of view, that's easy. That to me is never an issue. Soccer is the easy part. Everything else is the hard part. Soccer is always the easy part. Why? Because it's the game. It's a game. At the end of the day, if you can use soccer as a vehicle to make an impact, a positive impact on a child's life, you win. You win, right? I would much rather a coach be someone who encourages their kids, who builds them up, who teaches them about leadership, about creativity, to be brave, all these amazing things that we can use soccer than to go out and win, right? And that's really, to me, what I love to do. I love to use this as a vehicle to teach these types of things to the kids. And I think that's really important. So that was March break. That was the weekend. Absolutely fantastic. And I was just absolutely drained after that, from morning to night of training. It's a lot. So needed that week, needed the weekend, even though I had games. I needed the first couple of days to just recover from everything. And I'm sure a lot of coaches can relate to that. Now, I wanted to talk about the attack versus defense that we do. And this has been, I think, one of the most powerful things that we've done, which is essentially have goalkeeper, the defense, the midfield against the forwards and the midfields. That's my attack versus defense game. So it doesn't matter 11v11, 9v9, 7v7, 6v, it doesn't matter. That's the way that we structure it. Goalkeeper, defense, midfield against forwards, midfield. That's it. Now, I really like to focus on building out of the back with this. When the goalkeeper has the ball, I did a full episode on scan, choose, do, so I'm not going to get into that, but that's really important for me. And then now we got to dissect and talk about the priorities. So we're scanning for space, and the choose part is when the priorities come out. So what are the priorities? The priorities are when the defense gets the ball, right? Because we're building out of the back, it's a goal kick, or the goalkeeper has the ball with his hands and he's going to roll it out, whatever that is. Defense scans before he gets it. And now he has to make a decision. The first priority always is to get the ball to the wingers. We want to attack from the wingers. Our wingers are powerful, dynamic, 1v1 champions. That is our DNA of Gladiator. Any player that I put on the wings, doesn't matter. They should be that. So that is the player that we want to get the ball to because they will create something amazing. That is the first priority. If that player is blocked by a passing lane, the second priority is our creative midfielder. Our creative midfielder, their job is to be in space there. Okay, so if the winger can't get it, then we go to the center mid. And again, once the center mid gets it, we want to get the ball to that winger because they're our champion. They're the ones that are so creative on the ball. Now, don't get me wrong. Our center mids are just as good. A lot of them are even better at 1v1s than our wingers. Our center midfields are players that have excelled to an extraordinary point where they can control the whole game. So I love it when my center mids have the ball. Not only are they good at 1v1s, but their vision and their passing is incredible. Their ability to scan, their ability to not get kicked off the ball and not lose the ball is just at a high level. So they're our second option, which is already a great option as it is, right? And then our third option is to reset to the goalkeeper. That's our third option. So that's how we're building our priorities. Now, it's really important that if we don't execute that first option to the wingers, that when we make that pass to a second or a third option, the winger's job is now to find space because it didn't work the first time. So they should be right away finding those passing lanes. So if that ball is going to the center mid, second priority, then we're making our runs. And by the time the center mid gets the ball, our wingers better be in a position to receive it. They have to. Okay. If they're not, what does the center mid do? Same thing. First priority, can we get the ball to the wingers? Second priority, now we're looking to attack with our forward, try and get that ball to our center forward, or 1v1s. And if there's nothing there, then they reset again to the defender or the goalkeeper, either way. But we really want to attack. Okay. What I've started to notice with our teams is we are best when we focus on attack and don't really focus on defense. So the more we are attacking, the better position we are, just because our players are so used to it. Now let's talk about getting open. In my opinion, the best way to get open is to be invisible, right? If they can't see you, they can't get you. So we want to be invisible. Now, is that possible? No, we cannot, unless, you get the Harry Potter cloak. It's just not possible. So how do we do that? Well, the best way to get invisible in soccer is to go behind the defender that's marking you. Simple as that. They have to make a decision. Either they turn their shoulder and look at you. And if they do that, then their eyes are off the ball, which is great. Or they're looking at the ball and their eyes aren't on you. And if they're constantly scanning back and forth, that's fine too. Okay, I don't mind that. Okay, they're constantly adjusting their position. Now they're worrying about two things. That's really hard to do. And if they're good enough to do that, great. That's a great player. And I don't mind. But most players are not good enough to do that, even at the highest level. I remember Liverpool. This was Champions League, I think. Trent Alexander-Arnold didn't scan for a cross. And what happened? Player got behind him, scored a goal. So even at the highest level, that's one of the most difficult things to do on defense. To be fully engaged on defense with the ball and the player that you should be cutting a passing lane from is a very, very difficult thing to ask of players, to be that engaged. So if you start behind the player, and I'm not talking about on their shoulder, that's not what I'm talking about fully behind, then you have an advantage. So the obvious question, what about offsides? Great question. Well, if we look at some of the best forwards in history, they actually start in that offside position first. They find the space. Their scanning is a lot easier because they don't have to scan their shoulder, right? So they scan for the space and then they run up. And if you look at Messi's false nine position, that's where you want to start. You want to start behind that defender, find the space, and then make that run into the space. That's essentially it. And we call that a support run with our academy, right? So our players, if you're in midfield and up until under 11, there are no offsides. So that doesn't matter. But at under 11, that's what we train, right? Offside position, then we come into support. But in the younger ages, you don't even need that. And if you're playing midfield, which is where we're building out from, then you really don't need that because you're not offside. So our midfielders should be in between the forward pressing and their defender. That's what we're looking at, to find that space in between the lines. And for a center mid, that position is in between the forward and the winger. That's where they're hanging out. That's the space that they're finding, and they're behind that forward. Okay. Now, it would be even better to get behind their defender and then make a support run inside into the space, but that depends on how their defender is situated, if they're in that position where they want to be. The other way we can do it is we can check out with the defender, force them out, and then check in. The midfielders don't really have a lot of time on the ball. And that's why those are our champions, because as soon as they get it, they have to do something incredible with that ball so that they can beat those players. So for me, that becomes super important. And that's what we're training now. So if you watch our games, that's what we should be looking for. Are the wingers, are they moving into space? Are they behind the defender? How is our priorities? Are we getting it to the first priority enough times? If not, that's a problem with the winger not getting open. Are we using the center mid then? How many times are we resetting it? If we're resetting too much, that's a problem. That means our midfielders aren't working. And we can start to analyze the way that we're performing based on that. How many times are we attacking, right? How many times are we resetting and switching and going back and forth? Okay. What does that mean? Does that mean that the other team is actually at an elite level defensively, or is that our fault for not working as hard as we should on offense? And that's what we're constantly looking at. We have one more game this weekend. And sorry, not this weekend. We have one more game April 1st for 2010s, and then their season is over. I think we only have 3 games with our 2012-13 team. And then our Sunday games actually go till the end of April. So because we're in 2 different districts, we're kind of in this weird season. essentially, that one ends later, one doesn't, one ends earlier. And then right into May, I think the first weekend of May, we have a tournament. So our season starts right away. And then May 15th is when we go outside. So we're actually having our first tournament before we go outdoors, which I think is really interesting. And we'll see how we do. Now, for our 2012s, they've played 9v9, so they're going to be okay. Our 2011s, they've played 9v9, so they're going to be okay. Our 2010s, our U13 team, they have never played 11v11, so that's going to be a struggle. But we've gotten into that 3-4-1 shape, so just adding two wingers, I think will actually just help us. We're used to building out of the back. We'll have a lot more space, but we'll see how we do. That's going to be really interesting to see how we perform in that first tournament. I did want to say thank you for listening. I appreciate you so much. If you want to support me in a different way, you don't have to. I do have a new newsletter that I am doing, and it's going to be really just business stuff. I'm really excited for it. I do a lot of reading about just great business books and stuff like that. So most of these newsletters, they're going to be summing up a lot of these concepts on some of the best business books out there. So I'm really excited to share that with you. And it's only $5 a month. I'll be sending out newsletters twice a week. So if you want to learn more, great, and support the show. All that money is going to getting better equipment for the podcast and just setting up a more professional atmosphere. I also want to start doing videos on YouTube. I have a lot of plans for the podcast, but financially, it just doesn't work right now. I don't make any money off anything on here. So it's a great way to support the show and support me. Another great way is just tell someone, tell another coach. And yeah, that's just as good for me. I'm just as happy if you do that. But if you want to support the show, the link is in the show notes. And yeah, you can join. You can stop anytime. All you have to do is just unsubscribe from the newsletter. So if you want to do it 1 month, that's great. See how it is, if you like it. And yeah, we can just gotta go from there. Also, I want to thank VO for constantly supporting the show. It means so much. And I'm just starting to see them everywhere now. It's not even something that is unique. Everyone knows about VO. So if you're looking to get $200 off a VO camera to help your players just analyze the game better, be able to look at your opponent, see how you performed, it's just a game changer from that point of view. It allows you to reflect, and it really allows you to just do it in an unbiased way. A lot of the time you get feedback and this and that, and you're like, well, did that really happen? I'm not sure. Now you know. You can tell by watching the game, right? You can be so frustrated as I was this weekend with our Saturday morning game and our Sunday game, and then look at it and just kind of realize we actually didn't play badly. We just made some mistakes in the back that cost us our goal. We had a new goalkeeper, which lost the ball a couple of times, and that ended up as a goal. So it's not a big deal, right? So these are all things with VO. If you're looking at it, again, use the code $200 off. It's a lot of money. I think it's 200. I hope so. If not, it might be 100. But anyway, yeah. So that's it for that. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. I'm happy to report that the Facebook group is doing really well. There are a lot of members, way more than I thought, that would join. So I'm really excited about that. Again, I'm not going to really talk in that form. I'm just going to kind of let you guys engage with each other, ask questions, post whatever you like. I'll just kind of oversee everything, oversee the post, make sure that there's no arguments or things like that, and that everyone is respectful. But other than that, it's grown a lot. So pretty happy with it, and I'll let you guys, if you want to join it, just Coaching Soccer Weekly on Facebook, and you can just join it and have fun. This weekend we only have 3 games, so I'll talk about that next week. And until next week, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the game. Coaching Soccer Weekly is a production of World Class Coaching. All rights reserved.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.